Hi, I'm Denise Cameron, Team Latitude and Team Hand-Eye Supply, and I'm here to give you a couple tips on things to do to make sure your eating and nutrition is good leading up to and during a tournament. So I am absolutely no expert on this subject at all, but I've been making a lot of effort to get better, so I want to share some of the tips and some of the information that works for me and see if you can utilize any of it. So leading up to a tournament, you just kind of want to eat clean, eat healthy, try not to have a big junk food dinner the night before you go to bed and have to wake up early and go play. So that's just a matter of just trying to be smart leading up to it. You should always try to eat decent, eat healthy, eat clean, but especially leading up to an event. But once you're actually there, try to do a good breakfast. I know sometimes it's hard, you're traveling, you have to get up early. Maybe take some of the stuff that I'm going to show you that I like to snack on and have that stuff available for breakfast too. So anyway, so starting out with some of the stuff I like to have on the course with me. One thing that everybody usually has is some kind of granola bars or snack bars. I really like these two, especially the Kind bars and then Cliff bars. These pack a little more punch protein-wise, so I usually only eat like half of this. But these are actually really delicious too, and they're made out of good ingredients, so you're not just getting all sugar and no power behind the food. Another thing is beef jerky. Now this isn't the most healthy thing in the world. It's got a lot of salt and a lot of preservatives in it, but in small doses it's good protein, good thing to snack on to keep you going so you don't get too hungry in the middle of your round. And then last, but probably my favorite, is just throw a banana in the bag. I recommend eating this early because if it bounces around your bag for too long, it may not be in the best shape. But this is always a great thing to have on the course with you, just to make sure you don't get too hungry playing, because that can affect your focus and you don't want to throw bad shots just because you're craving something to eat. So moving on from that, on to things that you should have with you at lunchtime. So I've always been a person that usually would go run to the closest place I could find food, whether it be, sub at a gas station or fast food or whatever. And I'm trying to get away from that. For one thing, it's nice to be able to relax on your break if you're playing a 2-round event, especially if you aren't actually leaving the course, if your second round is there. I recommend getting something like a little cooler, so that way you can pack your lunch, bring it with you, and have everything you need right there. So when you finish your round, you have a cold drink and a good meal, and then you can just relax or practice whatever you need to do before the second round. So first off, for beverages, if you're like me, you have a little bit of a sweet tooth. I do like soda, try not to drink it as much, and maybe at lunch you like to have something other than water. Obviously you want to drink lots of water, stay hydrated, but something like this is nice to have at lunch. So coconut water is a big one. It's really good for you, really refreshing. It will really hydrate you, so it's a good thing to have. I especially like this green tea. It's not great, it's got a lot of sugar in it, but at least it comes from a good base, which is tea, and it's another thing that gives you a little bit of a sweet tooth, a little bit of a taste other than water, and you're not chugging a Coke, so that's always good. And then on to some easy food items. One thing that I discovered this season and I love is actually peanut butter and honey sandwiches. And really you can do any kind of sandwich, but what I love about the peanut butter and honey is you can get a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter, and a little thing of honey, and keep that in your car. Never need to refrigerate it, don't need to worry about it going bad. So it's just a great thing to have on hand to make sure you're eating something decent and not grabbing that burger last minute because you don't have anything on hand. Another thing I really like is hummus. Just bring a little jar of it, and then that's a great thing to supplement something like this. Little wheat thin chips. Still, they're chips. I mean, it's not the healthiest thing in the world, but it's a better alternative than your basic potato chip. These things I love. They're like little pea pod sugar snap pea things. They're crunchy. They're great to dip in stuff. And they're actually healthy and they will fill you up. So it's another good alternative to a fast food or quick food option that you might try to utilize. I really like cheese, so I'll usually keep some kind of string cheese or something like that on me. This is another thing. A lot of these items, I mean, if you're having a long round, you didn't eat it all at lunch, I mean, you can throw it in your bag, take it with you, and then you have something to snack on during the round. So my last thing I have in here is just a piece of fruit. Another easy thing. So you see I have a pretty balanced meal of stuff to eat for lunch. If I have this with me, I don't have to go anywhere. And takes one more thing out of the equation that you need to worry about when you're playing a tournament. And everybody can save a couple bucks. And just these are some of the methods that I'm trying to utilize to get better about what I do when I'm off playing an event. And hopefully you can use some of the tips too. Thanks.
Hi, we want to welcome you out to Jones Park here today in beautiful Emporia, Kansas, where we want to talk about Rule 803.01, Obstacles and Relief. So what I want to do for you first is read you the rule, and then we'll look at a couple of different instances in reality to see how you would deal with those situations. So here's the rule. Obstacles to stance or throwing motion. With the exception of casual obstacles to a stance as described below, a player is not allowed to move any obstacle on the course. No relief is granted from park equipment such as signs, trash cans, or picnic tables, which is considered to be a part of the course. A player is allowed to request that other people remove themselves and/or their belongings from the player's stance or line of play. So we'll cover that last part first because it's pretty easy. If somebody is in your way, you can say, hey, can you please get out of my way to throw? That is within your rights and that person is expected to move. However, you might run into an obstacle. So here, let's take a look. I've landed right next to a T sign. Let's take a look at what I would do in this particular situation. So my suspect is right up on the T sign and I'm trying to go to the other side. According to the rule, I cannot take relief from this sign. I'm going to have to either play it where it lies or put my mini in front of this particular disc. So I can step around to make a throw on either side. I can throw over the top. However, I cannot just move over to the side because I'm afraid of this being a danger. I've landed here, so I've got to get around it myself. So what I'm going to do in this situation is I'll mark my disc, and I'll have to play with my foot from right here, and I'm going to have to figure out a way to get around this. So let's assume, as is the example I have down here on the ground, there are some loose branches. They have been detached from the tree. They are no longer growing, no longer active. Now I've got two different discs here. This pink one is actually in the broken branches. This orange one is behind them. If I'm playing in the direction of from the orange disc towards the pink disc, that's the direction I'm going towards the hole. So with this pink disc, because these branches are an obstacle to my stance, I can move them. Now, it used to be that if anything went in front of your disc, you could not move it, but that's no longer the rule. So it only concerns if it is affecting my stance or my throwing motion. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to put my mini down as best I can on the ground underneath. I'm going to secure that mini as best I can, and I am allowed to move all of these things so that they are no longer in my stance. So now I have a safe stance and I can throw from this position. So let's put these branches back. Now let's look at this orange disc. These branches are not in my stance and they are not in my throwing motion. Now, they are almost definitely going to be in my follow-through. Once I throw, I'm going to be stepping on these. However, even though that might cause me problems in my head when I'm trying to focus on this shot, that is not something that I can move. Repeat again, you cannot move things that is only going to affect your follow-through. I've seen many people do this during a tournament, and it is not legal. So, for this particular thing, I'll have to mark my spot, and I'm just going to have to take this stance, and I'm going to have to figure out a way to avoid these things if they're going to cause me any sort of injury, or if I'm comfortable with it, I can throw and just step on them if I don't think it's going to injure me. So those are your options. If the obstacle can be removed, you can move it out of the way. If it is not practical, you can take relief up to 5 meters on the line of play away from the basket, and that way you can get a safe stance and proceed on to the hole. Alrighty, so someone else on my card has thrown underneath this car. How do they take relief? So assuming that the basket is in front of the car, right now the disc is about the middle of the car in both directions. So there's no way that somebody's going to be able to get their foot underneath this car to be able to place it right behind the disc. Now, assuming this is not my car, I'm not going to be able to move it during the round. It's impractical to move this car. I don't think I'm going to be able to get it over. So here's what we're going to have to do. We know where the disc is, so I'm going to draw a line in between the basket and that disc, and I'm going to take relief in a straight line coming up to 5 meters behind. Now, 5 meters is about 16 feet. I'm not going to need that much space. So what I've got to do is put my mini marker down on the first available space that is no longer obstructed by this obstacle. So drawing a line through the basket to the middle of the car, I'm going to put my marker right down behind. So this doesn't give me a great stance. I've got this car right in my way. However, now I've got the ability to make this throw where I did not have it ahead of time. Now, you don't have to put it so close that you're literally standing on the car. Again, you can get relief from your stance or your throwing motion of a solid object. So I can be behind it a little bit so that there's enough room for me to throw and follow through. Now again, the same way that was for the branch, I'm not giving relief or I'm not able to take relief for my follow through. So if I want to do a full run up, it doesn't matter, okay? I just have to be able to stop myself and not hit the car. That's the only relief that I'm given. What we have here is a disc that has come to rest against a large, solid obstacle. So whether or not I mark my disc, I'm not going to be able to put my foot down in a legal stance position. You're supposed to place your you're supposed to have a point of contact that is within 30 centimeters or 11 3/4 inches of the back edge of either your disc if you've left it from the previous throw or your marker disc. So either way, if I play it how it is or if I put my mini down, there is not enough space here for me to get my foot in, and if I come behind the tree, I'm greater than 11 3/4 inches behind my mark. So you are allowed to take relief in this sort of instance. So in the same way, I can take a line from the basket through my mini, and I can get to the point wherever I can make a legal stance. So I can back up far enough that it's not in my throwing motion, so I can put my marker about here, and still I'm going to have to deal with this tree, but I can take the stance, whereas I'll be able to put my foot down. So those are some different examples of how you can take proper relief. If you have a violation of a stance or a relief rule, that's going to be a 1-stroke penalty. If you intentionally damage the course in order to make a stance or take relief from something, such as if I broke this branch off, that's going to be a 2-stroke penalty. These are all covered under Rule 803.01 in the PDGA rulebook. Go to pdga.com so that you can see all of the rules and the Q&As concerning these, so that you always know what the best thing to do and the right rule to follow.
The Dynamic Disc Soldier Bag is a very spacious duffel-style bag. In the main compartment, you'll be able to fit 18 plus discs and then 2 putters in the front pocket. It also has 2 drink holders on either side, and you can hold up to a 32-ounce bottle of Gatorade or Nalgene bottles. We also have 2 side pockets that have zippers where you can hold valuable things such as your cell phone, a dirt bag, wallet, and keys. On the top, we have a zippered mesh pocket where you can hold things such as your marker, clipboard, or even your mini. It also has an internal U-shaped frame and 2 dividers to hold your discs in place. There is also the option to add dynamic disc bag straps for an additional cost. At $49.99, the Dynamic Disc Soldier Bag is an excellent option for you to have when you take your discs out on the course.
Hi, this is Dixon Jowers, and joining me is Paige Bjekraas. We're here with Dynamic Disc TV to bring you a new segment this series. We're calling it Back to the Basics. So we're going to show 2 different pros' perspectives on drives, upshots, and putts. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go, and then Paige is going to go, and we're going to tell you what we're thinking, what we're doing with our body, and then what we're trying to actually accomplish with all of those things combined together. So let's get over to the drives. All right, so I want to tell you how I do my drive, what I'm actually doing, and then what I'm thinking about. There's 3 parts to the drive that I have to keep in mind when I'm getting ready to go: the load, the twist, and the release. So let's start with that beginning. The main thing that I want to do in my drive is, because my backside and my thighs, they're the biggest muscle group in the body, I have to get them involved. So the easiest way to do that in disc golf is what we call the X step. So as I'm progressing down the tee box, I'm going to lead with my dominant foot. So if I'm throwing with my right hand's going forward. As I open this up, my left foot is then going to go behind my right foot, creating kind of an X in my legs here. That's why we call it the X step. Then, as my right foot is going to be the next one to move, I'm going to have to pivot on my left, sticking my right foot out behind. What this does is, this is the load part of the throw. It gets my hips turned away. Next, so my hips are turned away. Now I gotta get coming through this. I gotta use all of the potential stored energy right here and get it to the disc. So the way that that happens is, I'm gonna begin to twist. Now, that's what my lower body's doing. My upper body, I wanna have the disc pointed as far away from the target as I can, so that it creates the longest amount of time so that I can accelerate through here. So as I get turned away with my hips, I'm going to begin to pull through. As my foot twists, it's going to start sending that twist up my body. My hips are going to turn, my waist is going to turn, and it's going to start turning my shoulders also. What this ends up doing to the disc at the end is, as I pull through, I want to keep this disc close to me and high across the top of my chest. What that does is, it takes all of this energy as it's coming up through my body, and it gets it out to my wrist, so that the very last thing that happens as I come through is that wrist pop. So that all of this power has come all the way up from the ground, transferred through my body to get it out at the very end. And the last thing that I'm doing is, I want to release the disc at whatever angle it is that I'm trying to accomplish for that particular shot, whether hyzer or flat or whatever. That's one of the most important things you can do. So as I twist through, I want to keep the disc close to me so that I can get this energy to my wrist, to the disc, and out into the fairway. That's what I like to do. Let's see what Paige Bjekraas likes to do.
Okay, so we just saw what Dixon likes to do. What I like to do when I step up to a tee pad and I'm about to, attack a hole, is I like to think about what I'm planning, what I want my disc to do. And what I'm going to be doing to get my disc to do what I want is the X step. So I think most of you guys have heard of it. It's a simple couple of steps. I start with my left foot forward, and then I put my right foot kind of parallel with it. Then I cross my left foot back, and then I'm reaching far across, and then I come through. So you kind of make an X with your foot. And so that's how I get the momentum and power that I need to execute the shot that I want. So I'm gonna kind of break down what I do and what I'm thinking at each step. So my first step is to kind of get my momentum going, because the more momentum you have, like in the steps you have, the more the momentum will go to your disc when you finally release, which causes more spin and more power, and it goes further. So my first step is to kind of, get the jumpiness out and kind of get that first step going. And so as I'm coming over, I've got my disc right here. I want to keep my disc as close to my body as possible, because the more tight and the more compact your throw is, the more power that you're going to have when you actually release, because your power isn't out here, or you're not losing anything here, you're keeping it really tucked in, and that's what I do. So at this step, I'm right here, I'm keeping it really close. During the X step, I start to reach back. I'm not reached back all the way yet, but I'm about halfway there. I'm kind of getting my momentum ready. At the next step, I'm reached back as far as I can. The point of this is, the further you reach back, the more momentum and power will be coming through and out into the disc, which will cause your disc to go further. So at this point, I'm reached back as far as I can. I want my hips to be directly facing the opposite way of the hole. So at this point, my hips are facing this way, even though the hole's that way, and my shoulders are doing the same thing. My shoulders are straight back, and I'm reaching back as far as I can. And then the next step is that I am pulling through, and I'm spinning and rotating on my heel. You don't want to spin on your toe, you want to spin on your heel. And I'm pulling it through very tight and compact across my chest. As a girl, you kind of have to figure out where to kind of place it, because your chest can get in the way. But for me, I kind of bring it over my chest. And so I keep it tight, and you want to keep the disc as flat as you can. That's what I do. You can imagine like there's food on your plate, and if you get it off its flatness, you're going to spill your food. So you want to keep it flat across the entire time, and you're rotating on your heel. And then it comes out and you spin. So one thing is when I'm here and I'm reached back, there's kind of an order that my body goes in when I throw. So first I'm gonna twist my hips and attack with my hips, and then my torso's gonna follow, then my shoulder, and then my arm, and then my wrist. And with all the power you gain from that, your body's gonna naturally follow through. You really wanna be aware of that follow through, because if you stop yourself, you're losing that extra momentum and you're hurting your knee and your ankle. Like, that can really hurt you in the next, few years if you don't follow through. And so that's one thing I'm really aware of when I throw, is that follow through, because I know I gain a lot more distance with my follow through, and I'm more accurate, and I have a better success rate while I'm focusing on that following through.
And that's how we get back to the basics on our drives. Stay tuned for the next episode, where we're going to take a look at your fairway shots.
At $49.99, yeah.
Stay tuned for the next episode.
Okay, I'm talking. Test. Bars.
An internal U-shaped frame to hold your disc in split. Disc in split.
And that's how we get back to the basics on our drives. Okay, I was like, fairway, upshot, what are we saying? Okay.
Can you hear me, Danny? Bob's not gonna hear this until he goes to production, and he's gonna wonder what I'm talking about right now.
It's not recording.
He's so stupid. Bobby, your fly's down.
You don't even need it.
Okay.
Yeah, like that.
Oh.
At $49.99, the dynamic disc cooler.